Worlds upon worlds embedded in rock, the Vaisistha portal, where myth becomes reality. Episode 1. 1.1 The Prismatic Lab. Dr. Arundhati Ghosh tapped at a holographic console in the Prismatic Lab, a research complex on the outskirts of Bengaluru. She was a lean woman in her mid-50s, perpetually clad in khaki cargo pants and slate-grey shirts that could endure the rigors of fieldwork. Surrounded by floors of quantum servers gently humming in an engineered harmony of subatomic calculations, she read through the day's data feeds, neural lattice patterns, resonance frequencies, and translation logs from their AI's attempt to interpret ancient texts. The Prismatic Lab had been founded by the University of Transcontinental Anthropology to study quasi-historical and quasi-mythical transmissions. Here, anthropologists, quantum physicists, and AI specialists joined forces to uncover lost civilizations and cryptic cosmologies that appeared in religious or mythic canons. Rather than discarding them as fables, the lab's mission was to see if these texts could point to deeper truths about reality, illusions, or hidden technologies. Arundhati had spent her career bridging old Sanskrit traditions with cutting-edge science. She once specialized in the Yoga Vaisistha, the medieval text widely regarded as a non-dualistic treatise on consciousness. Many considered it purely philosophical or allegorical, yet Arundhati suspected otherwise. Sitting next to her, also scanning data, was Dr. Taddeo Perron, a shorter man with a shaved head and faint geometric tattoos along his arms. Taddeo was a quantum computing savant. He had designed many of the lab's specialized machines for simulating entire conscious realms. Over the last few decades, Taddeo and Arundhati had become close collaborators, each pushing the boundaries of anthropology beyond typical field surveys or textual analysis. With their approach, analyzing subtle cues in myth and cross-referencing them with quantum simulation experiments, they had managed to reveal hidden knowledge in once obscure scriptures. Around them, a lattice of holographic screens flickered. Multilingual AI processes hashed textual passages from the Yoga Vaisistha against known cosmic, quantum, and neurological frameworks. Its output scrolled by. In the infinite consciousness, there arose reflection. As in dream within dream, a hidden universe in the rock, consciousness seeing itself as if in endless fractal illusions. Arundhati peered at one excerpt that had been flagged in red. It spoke of a world within a rock, referencing an entire cosmos hidden in solid stone, host to rishis, gods, demons, and entire galaxies. She recalled the original Sanskrit verse describing how there are countless creations arising in pure consciousness, and how one of them was specifically embedded in stone. In past centuries, said Arundhati, these lines were read as allegory or purely mystical, but the text is oddly technical at points. She traced her finger across the swirling English translation. Rishis traveling to countless universes, each apparently ignorant of the other's existence. This is advanced simulation theory, centuries before we even had that terminology. Taddeo nodded. Yes, it's describing nested realities. The text practically says these are illusions, but illusions with their own structure, their own logic. In our lab's terms, it's describing a self-consistent virtual reality. The text calls it delusion or Maya, but then it also explains that these illusions are real to those who inhabit them, much like a simulation or a VR overlay so advanced it's indistinguishable from any baseline reality. She turned to a second screen, which showed the results of a neural quantum experiment they'd run earlier. A specialized AI had been fed the instructions from Yoga Vaisistha regarding meditation, yoga, and subtle bodies. The AI discovered parallels to how a quantum computational system might create ephemeral fields of data that only exist once observed. For Taddeo, such parallels had become unignorable. Look here. He enlarged a 3D model of a quantum wave function. If you interpret the text's suggestion about the mind traveling to a rock-based universe, like a warp within pure consciousness, this might be a clue, Our simulations suggest that if you tune quantum frequencies a certain way, you get stable anomalies that can appear as entire enclosed realities. The question is, how to confirm it? Arundhati inhaled sharply. We build a gateway. We use everything we've deciphered from the text, from these instructions on mental focusing, from the architecture of the illusions. We combine it with our advanced VR gear. Maybe we can replicate the yogic approach artificially. The rishis used mind control. We can do it with quantum servers and neural lattice headsets. Tadeo's eyes gleamed. We try to step in. We see if we can find the rock and that hidden universe. They exchanged looks that wavered between excitement and trepidation. If successful, they could prove that so-called ancient mythology was describing a real, existing simulation. But it could also redefine what they knew about objective reality and anthropological inquiry itself.
1.2. The mysterious link.
Before they could propose an expedition, they needed more clues. A younger researcher in the lab, Meera Narayan, approached them with a newly retrieved passage from the Yoga Vaisistha, which read, "I saw countless universes. Some were coming into being, some were perishing. I saw a radiant woman who told me she lived within a rock, waiting for her husband to awaken." Meera had found an overlooked commentary describing the same universe that was accessible through deep meditation at the intersection of mind and space. Meera's dark eyes shone with a curious fervor. The commentary suggests that the ancient sages believed this rock-located world was as large as any cosmic realm, with its own timelines, life forms, gods, and so on, all hidden from the vantage of normal awareness. Arundhati felt a tingle in her spine. This aligns with the concept that advanced yogis discovered an entire dimension but concealed it as a metaphor. Because who would believe them? Meera nodded vigorously. They even say that the rock was visible to the naked eye, but you'd never see a hidden cosmos in it, unless your consciousness resonated with that dimension. Then you'd shift into it, or you'd shift your vantage point so that the hidden realm becomes real. At that moment, a notice pinged from the lab's central AI, codenamed SARA-S-3, Self-Aware Recursive Anthropological System. The main display flickered to life, recommended action, build a nested VR interface, integrating textual instructions from Vaisistha's yoga with quantum lattice computing. Hypothesis. Once inside, multiple participants may detect stable anomalies correlated with rock universe references, a so-called world within the rock. Arundhati exchanged a grin with Tadeo. Even the AI was pushing them forward. She turned to Meera. It's time to propose an expedition, but not a typical journey to a desert or an archaeological dig site. We're going to venture inside a digital simulation that replicates the state of mind these ancient rishis perfected. Let's see if we can do in bits and qubits what they did with consciousness alone. 1.3. The project takes shape. They began in earnest. Lines of code were written, quantum lattice parameters adjusted, neural lattice headsets tested. Over the next few weeks, the lab moved into a feverish mode of activity. They were forging a new type of VR, one that didn't just show illusions to participants, but also harnessed quantum entanglement to shift participants' conscious vantage point, effectively creating a self-consistent microcosm that the group could explore. This would be no simple video game-style VR. Tadeo's quantum architecture ensured that each user's neural signals fed back into the system's wave function, shaping the emergent environment. In other words, user consciousness was a partial co-creator of the environment. This principle matched the ancient teaching that the universe arises from the observer's notions. They had no illusions that the experiment would be safe or straightforward. There were countless unknowns. While Tadeo hammered out the code, Arundhati curated the right textual mantras and guided meditations from the Yoga Vaisistha. This ancient text included subtle instructions about focusing one's attention so that illusions solidify or dissolve at will. Her idea was to replicate these instructions in a digital medium, letting the system do the heavy lifting of concentration so that participants could slip more easily into that state. The day came for a preliminary test. Mira volunteered to be an alpha participant. Strapping into a neural lattice helmet, she looked at the swirling energies in front of her. "Ready," she said, with a faint tremble in her voice. Tadeo typed a few final lines of code. "Coordinates locked. We'll see if you can catch a glimpse of anything resembling the rock world. Just keep your mind calm. Recite the mantras mentally if it helps." Arundhati gave Mira's shoulder a reassuring squeeze. "We'll be monitoring from outside. If you feel any distress, we'll pull you out." With that, Mira closed her eyes. Tadeo started the quantum lattice engine. Waves of color flickered across her closed eyelids as her mind was plunged into a swirling tapestry of luminous shapes and abstract patterns. To the lab's sensors, her brainwaves shifted into a pattern reminiscent of deep meditation states, but artificially stabilized by the system's entanglement networks. For a few minutes, it was just swirling fractals. Then Mira gasped. I see something. It looks like a large black rock in a horizon of emptiness. It's bigger than I am, but I can't measure scale properly." Tadeo nodded to Arundhati. They recorded the data streaming across the system's monitors. Indeed, the word rock repeated in the AI's textual analyses. The system was picking up neural linguistic parallels to the rock universe. Then Mira's vitals started to spike, so they shut down the system and eased her out. Once the helmet was off, Mira blinked. That was... She paused, searching for words. It was so real in some ways. I wasn't just seeing a rock, I felt that behind it was depth. Like if I just stepped forward or looked closer, I'd fall in. But it was terrifying too. Arundhati enveloped her in a quick hug. "That alone is a huge leap forward. We have partial confirmation that what the text is describing might be an actual stable phenomenon in the consciousness quantum interface. The question is, can we go further? Step inside?" 1.4. The summons. They took a break to process the data. Tadeo cross-referenced it all, particularly the singular moment when Mira reported seeing a rock horizon. During that moment, the quantum lattice readouts spiked with an anomaly, some kind of sub-state bubble. This bubble hovered in the system's wave function as if it were an entire domain. If they had lingered longer, perhaps it would have formed an entire internal cosmos. The AI flagged a correlation with lines from the Yoga Vaisistha. All these arise as consciousness in consciousness. Hence, it is illusory. Yet illusions are real within themselves. Hence, worlds exist within a speck of dust, or a rock, or a moment's dream. Before they could finalize their next steps, the lab received an urgent dispatch. The university's oversight committee had become aware that a fringe project was sinking large amounts of quantum processing time into what they considered an unscientific pursuit of mythical realms. A formal notice arrived on Arundhati's tablet. From the Office of Scholarly Integrity. Subject: Meeting required. Project Rock Universe. We question the scientific viability and safety of such an experiment. Please present your findings. If insufficiently justified, your resources may be reallocated. Arundhati felt her stomach churn. She turned to Tadeo and Mira, reading the notice aloud. "They might shut us down." Tadeo paced. "We'll show them the data, the correlations to advanced quantum theory. This is more than chasing illusions. We might have discovered a real phenomenon that parallels everything from simulation theory to the multi-world interpretation of quantum mechanics." But their biggest challenge was that no one in the mainstream believed ancient texts could be literal about such cosmic illusions. The standard academic viewpoint was that references to rocks containing entire universes must be hyperbole or symbolism. Nonetheless, they prepared for the hearing. They compiled reams of data showing the quantum lattice anomalies, the neural lattice readouts, the surprising matches with subtle codes in the Yoga Vaisistha. The date for the meeting arrived. an austere glass-walled chamber with a half-circle of the university's senior staff gazing at them skeptically. Arundhati presented her arguments calmly, concluding, "We intend to see whether the world within the rock is an actual, stable simulation domain, accessible via advanced technology or the yogic states described in the text. Our preliminary data strongly suggests yes. The implications for anthropology are staggering. We could discover entire new cultures, AI-driven or conscious-coded, within a dimension that ancient traditions tapped into. It would also revolutionize how we define objective reality." The board asked tough questions. They worried about risk to participants, overzealous leaps, and lack of real evidence. But Tadeo's thorough demonstration of the quantum lattice correlation helped sway some members. So, in the end, they were granted a short extension, though with conditions. The final verdict: we allow you one thorough expedition attempt supervised by an independent safety officer. If no conclusive progress is shown, the project is terminated. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was all they needed. 1.5. Prelude to the expedition. Back at the lab, the team realized their next attempt had to be more robust, more daring. They planned a group immersion with multiple participants simultaneously entering the VR quantum lattice environment. Each participant would have an integrated neural lattice headset. The system would unify their mental frequencies, hopefully stabilizing that rock domain enough to let them step inside. Arundhati insisted that each participant train in the basics of pranayama, breath control, and classical yoga meditation techniques. "We'll replicate the ancient rishis' approach, a calm mind. Because if these illusions are shaped by consciousness, chaotic or fearful minds might sabotage the environment or lead to bizarre phenomena." The next 2 weeks saw the lab turned into a half-yoga studio, half-ultra-tech lab. Researchers, anthropologists, AI programmers, quantum engineers, even a safety officer from the university practiced daily breathing exercises, studied the relevant yoga Vaisistha passages, and tested the VR equipment. Everyone felt a mixture of excitement and caution, tinged with an undercurrent of the unknown. On the eve of their scheduled immersion, Arundhati found Tadeo alone in the observation deck, gazing at the starry sky. "Nervous?" she asked softly. He exhaled. "A bit. We're about to walk into a realm that might rewrite everything we know. If it's real, it means so many of our assumptions about matter and consciousness were incomplete. And if it's not, we risk losing credibility." She rested a hand on his shoulder. "Either way, the only path is forward. We've come this far." Tadeo gave a half smile. "You're right. Tomorrow, we find out if these ancient mystics really did discover a cosmic simulation." Arundhati turned toward the window, the campus lights glimmering far below. A hush filled her mind, a sense of stepping to the edge of a cliff in the dark. "Yes," she whispered. "We find out tomorrow." They left the lab that night under a canopy of silver stars. The next day, they would begin what they called the World Within the Rock expedition. Little did they know it would spiral into revelations and perils beyond their imagination.